Although most engineers will get involved in minor projects at some stage in their career, major projects require a great deal of advanced planning. Services must be maintained while the old equipment is removed and the new put in its place. Capital, installation and running costs have to be considered, together with control and monitoring. New program feeds may be required. These are all in the domain of Transmission Engineering Department. They're the specialists. Network planning, monitoring and control, power, antennas, internal communication, special projects, investigation of complex faults, just some of the tasks of transmission engineering. To those who've joined straight from school, though, this is all in the future. Being specialists, Transmission Engineering Department, or TED as it's usually known, normally take on staff who are fully trained in operations or who have continued their education to degree level or equivalent in an appropriate subject. Up to now, most of the action's been on the big stations, mostly HF and the MICs. Periodically, people come and go with vehicles laden with cases of test equipment, the outstation maintenance teams. Each large station has its own outstation responsibility, with some engineers rotating between outstation work and shift keeping. Other teams, though, only work with outstations. Indeed, the team base may not even be on a transmitting site. A 12-week attachment to one of these independent teams is usually something the trainee engineer looks forward to, especially as he or she has some choice in the matter. Anyone on an independent team will tell you two facts. In the first place, theirs is the best run and most efficient patch. Secondly, they have the greatest problems with geography. The truth, of course, is that all teams have to be efficiently run, while the problems of travel are different, but always present. One team may be an expert in avoiding holiday jams on Dartmoor, another on navigating the London suburbs, while others know the ferry timetable for the Outer Hebrides off by heart. Some teams also use helicopters and charter aircraft for the more remote sites. One of the interesting aspects of the attachment, though, is not so much what's being done, but how it's organised. That's the job of the team manager, ensuring equipment is correctly maintained, buildings and structures kept in good order, making sure the licence payers are getting value for money. Most important of all, managing the staff, getting the best out of each individual in a small team. Seeing management in action is part of transmission training. Today's engineer is, after all, tomorrow's manager. Chief Engineer Transmission is himself an ex-transmitter engineer, as is the BBC's Director of Engineering. But back to the present. Today's task is that of tuning up a klystron, in this case a small 6¼ kilowatt type. Working at UHF, tuning is all done with adjustable cavities. Although very stable and reliable, the cavities nevertheless have to be periodically stripped down, cleaned, refurbished and retuned. The klystron cooling system has to be checked. Care and attention to detail now avoids expensive problems in the future. Analysis of vision quality, normally monitored electronically, but there's no substitute for the human eye. Can any trends be spotted? Can trouble be averted at an early age before it becomes apparent to the viewer? It's called preventative maintenance, an important factor of BBC transmission maintenance philosophy. Let machines do the monotonous work, enabling the engineers to supply the brain power. The same philosophy applies to the hundreds of small relay stations up and down the country. Most of these, because of the small power levels used, are extremely reliable and are visited only infrequently. Antenna performance, slightly better than the normal figures on this trip, not necessarily a good thing. Something's changed. The weather, perhaps? What other tests can be carried out? Do we get the area antenna engineer onto it? We'd look foolish if there's nothing wrong, look even more foolish if there's something we've missed. That's the thing about transmitter maintenance. There's always something to offer a challenge. The antenna engineer, or to give him his correct title, Senior Transmitter Engineer Antennas, is responsible for a large number of stations. In common with 8 others up and down the country, he has the specialised test gear, the contacts with other experts, and that other essential, the rigging team who carry out the work aloft. An antenna STE has to be physically fit, for although most of the climbing is carried out by riggers, he frequently has to see things for himself, and that's no joke up a 300-metre mast high in the Pennines in winter. That's only part of the job, organising the planned work to be carried out during the weather window in summer, while always allowing for unexpected emergencies, dovetailing in all the minor jobs to be done when a rigging team is in the area. Some have HF arrays to look after as well, even more vulnerable to gales and icing in winter. Other work in BBC transmission takes place in the more comfortable environment of Warwick Technology Park. Project management, for instance, the application of technology, turning a collection of new and often unproven equipment into a stable and reliable system, ironing out the inevitable snags which only come to light when put into service, extremes of temperature, main surges, lightning strikes, high electromagnetic fields. NICAM 728, RDS, MVDS, just some of the technology that will be taken for granted in tomorrow's world. Other people's work there is less evident, but equally spectacular. Karina Beeks recently published work on the vertical radiation pattern of HF arrays with uneven foregrounds, for example, where actual measurements using a helicopter agreed closely with computer simulation. Or Chris Eccles' work on HF path prediction, liaising closely with researchers at Hull and Warwick universities. Two different projects with the common purpose of increasing the effectiveness of the BBC's external services. Others at Warwick are catering for the hundreds of other users who use the BBC's masts and towers for everything from motoring organisations to waterboards, and catering for the needs of BBC Transmission itself, coordinating specialised maintenance, new engineering projects, operational matters, safety, staff movements, communications and data dissemination, everything that has to be planned on a national basis. Not all head office staff remain desk-bound though. There are those who see even more of the world than most, because their patch covers the world. Antenna field drainage in Hong Kong, program feeds to the Seychelles, computer compatibility in Cyprus, not to mention all the details closer to home, like ongoing specialist training for staff or the promotion and marketing of BBC Transmission's facilities and expertise. Assets too valuable to be underutilised when a communications expansion of global magnitude is taking place. That tower on the hill's not just transmitting Howard's Way. It's probably paging the local lifeboat crew as well, together with cellular radio, PMR, data links, all making use of BBC facilities. Perhaps you've got off-peak electricity at home. Then chances are you've got an LF radio receiver in the meter, tuned to Radio 4. Ever wondered what the weird mass of lines and monkey chatter is on BBC Two after normal close-down? In this case, scrambled material for specialist customers. And then there's Datacast. Transmission networks have to be utilised to the utmost, from state-of-the-art digital microwave links to Radio 4 on longwave. Every part of the radio spectrum. Electronics is a young industry expanding at a staggering pace. BBC Transmission is at the forefront of that expansion, with its sights firmly on the 21st century. Today's student is tomorrow's engineer or manager. Following a tradition of aiming at the future. Nations shall speak peace unto nations has been the BBC's motto for over 60 years. It'll be even more true in the next 60. Our future is looking exciting.